So off the top, what does GiveWell do?
We're an organization that does rigorous research to identify places to direct charitable dollars to help people as much as possible in low-income countries. So we do the research, we publish everything about our research, our findings, and our recommendations on our site. And then donors can either give directly to us and enable us to re-grant those funds out to organizations that are helping people, or they can go on our website, see our recommendations, and just give directly.
Hmm.
That's
That's really cool. So you're providing research that people can use regardless, but you'll also direct their donations for them if they give through GiveWell.
Yep, exactly. And for donors who want to use our research, our operations are supported by another set of donors. So if you want to go to our website, you want to give to our recommendations, we don't take a cut. You don't need to give to us. And we know that a lot of people when they're giving don't want to see more of what they're giving go to overhead. And
Right.
with that in mind, we want to make it as easy as possible for folks to use our research. And that's the same reason donors support us. They want to make it as easy as possible for others to use our research.
That's interesting. How was GiveWell started?
Yeah, so right after I graduated from university, worked in finance at an investment firm, and after being there for a few years, a friend and I were young, single guys making a little bit more than we needed, and we wanted to give money to charity. And at the time, I mean, we're trying to give a few $1,000s away, and we went and tried to figure out which charities are doing the most good with their dollar. Like, what are they doing, and how well is it working? And in the process of trying to figure out where to give, we realized that there was very little information available that could answer our questions. Happy to tell a bunch of stories about that. And we also just found ourselves kind of obsessed with this question. It becomes like a really interesting question. Well, like there are all these problems in the world. What can you do to direct money to help people? And so we realized that this wasn't something that was available. You couldn't get these answers. We knew from all the work we were doing that folks in our position weren't able to determine where to give because the information wasn't there, and we were obsessed. So we left our jobs and started GiveWell as a full-time project back in 2007 to really like serve donors like us, donors who wanted to give with confidence, wanted to have a lot of impact, and wanted to understand and see themselves that the money they were giving was having a big impact.
Can you tell one of the stories?
Oh yeah. Well, I'll tell a couple of them. I mean, I was really interested in giving to uh, organizations that focused on water. So just helping people access clean water, which is a big problem in low-income countries. And um, I called them up and I'm like, so if I give you money, like what happens? Like, how does that work? And they said, $20 provides a child water for life. And I said, well, like, how does that work? Like, are you digging wells? And if you dig the wells, do you know if they're still there in a year? And is the water clean? And yeah, they were like, all right, we can't answer your questions right now, but we're going to send you information. About a week later, I got this giant package in the mail, and I was excited. I don't know, academic papers, like data reports. Um, it was like a 25-page annual report that was 95% pictures of kids. And then like some of the it's sort of like Pedialyte, like the solution you can put into water if a kid has diarrhea to help them like get over it. And I was just like, this is crazy. Like there were no answers to these questions. My co-founder at GiveWell, when he was interested in a different set of organizations, and he just asked like, how much money do you spend in each country you work on to get a sense of like, are you spending in the places that have more people and a greater degree of problem? And the organization accused him of being a spy for a rival charity because like, why else would anyone be asking questions like this? Like, it didn't make any sense. And so it was just a picture back then. It's really changed now, which is great, but a picture back then where charitable organizations just like weren't getting these kinds of questions. I think one said to me, you guys are asking questions that we don't even get from our $1 million donors. And that really stuck with me because I don't know, I just thought we were asking logical questions and no one, I mean, I shouldn't say no one else was, but it certainly wasn't the norm.
Wow. So how big is the GiveWell team?
We're 80 people today. We have 50 people working on our research team, and then about 15 who work on communications and fundraising, another 15 who work on business operations, so finance, legal, HR, et cetera.
That's a serious operation.
Yeah, GiveWell now in 2024, we directed about $395 million to the organizations that we recommend. And I don't know exactly where that stacks up as like private funding of international programs. I think we'd almost certainly be in the top 10 of private funders of global health programs and global health and development programs. Privately, governments are much larger, possibly in the top five. So it's a really large chunk of money that we're able to direct to people around the world.
That was in a year?
Yeah, that was just in 2024. So we've grown over time. I mean, when we started out, I think in our first year we raised about 100 grand from our former coworkers. Our second year we raised $35,000 and got it out the door and just have been growing ever since.
That is wild. So like what is what was 2023 like and what do you expect 2025 to be? Just trying to get an idea of the scale.
Yeah, all that, I don't even know that off the top of my head. But you can see that on our website. We have like metrics reports that we share that go into that data. But we've basically been operating at the scale of like low to mid hundreds of millions of dollars raised and directed every year. And
Wow.
then, I mean, I hope we can raise a lot more money because, especially now with cuts to aid globally, with more funding, we'll be able to do a lot of good. And so we hope to, keep raising money. And I hope we don't, stop raising the money we have. Each year donors need to step up again and give.
Hmm.
And, we're incredibly grateful for their consistent support. But, we're not an endowed foundation. We don't have a huge war chest in the bank. Every year we're basically every year we're like raising the money that we're able to direct in the subsequent year. And so every year we need to, I don't know, keep doing our job, keep showing donors that we can direct their funds well so they can give to us and we can direct it on.
Wow.
Man, I gotta ask, like, how does it feel to be directing that amount of money to causes that are important to you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like two different ways. Like maybe it's real crazy to think back to those early years. In our before we started recording, you were saying how we post a lot of information on our website and some of it's a little weird. I remember this board meeting we had in the summer of 2010. So that's about 3 years into GiveWell. Unfortunately, I think that recording is still on our website, and it was a depressing board meeting. We were not sure that we were going to survive. We didn't know if anyone cared about what we were doing. We didn't have a bunch, we didn't have fans. In hindsight, even by then, people had already learned about us who were going to give in the future, and we were sort of on the path. But when I think back to where we came from and where we are, yeah, I mean, it's extremely gratifying that so many people have come to work at GiveWell and made our work, as impactful as it is, and that donors want to give to us. It's pretty amazing. I never would have imagined it. And then at the same time, um, yeah, I think it's like pretty stressful sometimes to just think about the stakes of the work that we do. If we make mistakes with directing, um, $100,000, which is, a fraction of the total, that really affects people's lives around the
Mm,
world. Aid has a history of doing a lot of good and sometimes doing some harm. It can easily be wasted, and we just take that responsibility really seriously.
man, yeah, you mentioned the website. I don't know if I'd call it weird, but it's like it it's radically transparent. And my comment to you is that it's like transparent to the point of me as the reader being uncomfortable reading the amount of detail that you guys publish about past mistakes and past issues that have come up. And it's like, I mean, it's really incredible for an organization to be that transparent, where me as the user or consumer of that information is like kind of squirming, like I can't believe they're this transparent. But yeah, I'd say that it's impressive.
But I think it's good. I mean, we're asking people to take their money, trust us to direct it 10,000 miles away. And yeah, look, there's a lot of work that there are a lot of worry people have about charitable organizations being
Mm,
scams. And the truth is most charitable organizations mean well, they're doing their best. But I think people should be skeptical that the places they're sending their money are having the impact they hope. And so I don't know, like if we can send the message that we're bending over backward to tell you what we're doing and trying to be open about mistakes we've made, then I think we're doing a good job because I don't know, I think you should demand that. I think more people should be demanding I don't know, that's the in some ways that's what we're going for.
I don't know. It's a great precedent to set. I agree.
Ellie, can you talk about GiveWell's values?
Yeah, Yeah, so our I'd say that our like North Star value is just trying to have as much impact as we can on people who are in need. So that means improving their lives or saving their lives. That could be via health programs, increasing their income so they can buy the things they want, uh, just improving their lives via improving their health, uh, providing them people who want it with contraception so they can decide, when and how many children to have. So that's our North Star. And then the main ways we go about that is through two other core values, which are transparency, which we've already talked about, which to me is just I don't know, like it's so easy to make all sorts of claims about things. And we just want folks to know that when we say, we think it costs this much to save a life, or we directed money to this organization because what we think it will do, you don't have to take our word for it. You can go check it out yourself. And if you don't want to do that, you can have the confidence that there's a bunch of other people out there who, are doing that. And that should give you more confidence. So, transparency is a core value. And that's helping us achieve this other goal we have, which is being like truth seeking in our work. Just
Mm,
trying to get the right answers to questions. And I feel a little bit sheepish about using we talked about truth seeking as a value because I don't know, there's no capital T truth in what we do. It's not like we ever really know the impact for sure. We try to trade off between the good achieved by increasing someone's income versus the good achieved by reducing some sickness they have, and there's like no answer to how to trade
mm,
off to those, but that's our like anchor of our work is just we ask questions, we ask questions, we ask questions, we dig and we dig and we dig, and really the only thing that stops that digging is the fact that we're not an academic group, like we're actually directing money, so at some point we just got to do the best we can and push money out into the world. And then and a final value we take really seriously is just being considerate. Like I think as
mm,
for two big reasons. Like one is I think groups that talk about maximizing impact, being transparent, being truth seeking, like that has a certain vibe that is, can be really cold and challenging to engage with. And we just aren't, I mean, we're not that way. We don't want to be that way. And I think it's
mm,
like a good corrective. And then also, um, we're we're a nonprofit. We raise funds, but at the same time, we're directing funds to other groups. And when you're directing a lot of money out the door, people have every incentive in the world to bend over backward to do what you want. And we have organizations we've like taken a call with, and then next thing we know, they've spent days preparing like a long report for us to try to convince us that we should give them money. And so we really try to be forward thinking about what's
mm.
going on the side of the organizations we're considering supporting, ultimately the people who we're trying to help, and just have them front of mind in everything we do, so we don't get too lost in our own research and models, and just remember that it's like the other groups that are really the priority in our work.
Huh. The truth seeking really shows up in the information on the website too, because you have like a thesis for something, but then you'll come back a few years later and question whether you were right and reevaluate. It's like it's a really, I mean, it does exactly what you just described, which is incredible. Um, what would you say sets GiveWell apart from other nonprofit evaluators that are doing maybe similar-ish work?
Yeah, ultimately it's the combination of those factors, the values that I described that no one else brings together. So there are
Mm,
evaluators that primarily focus on financial ratios, like how much is going to overhead versus programs. Well, we're focusing on impact, like how much are we able to help people? There are lots of groups that grant out money and make recommendations, but they don't share the level of detail about the underlying reasons for those recommendations that we do. And so, I and then I guess I think that we're rigorous and truth seeking in a way that's unique, though that, I think is harder to really know and say about other groups. But, ultimately it's that focus on impact and then being transparent that I don't think you'll find anywhere else.
How do you evaluate the success of GiveWell?
Yeah, so really, our success comes down to how much we're able to help people. And that's a function of like two factors, basically. One is how much money we raise and are able to direct. You could complicate that a little if you want. And then also how good our recommendations are. The first one, how much money we raise, well, that's measurable. That's straightforward. So we measure that, we report on that. And then it's really hard to say how good our research is. Like there's no external number that we can point to that says like, well, this is how much additional good GiveWell created in the world because of its existence. You can't have the equivalent of the like annual return on an investment portfolio because there's just no way to get at that number. And so what we try to do to assess the quality of our research is um, put our work out in the open, invite external critique, try to critique it ourselves, and that intense focus on the, what we believe, what we decided, what we were right about, what we were wrong about, and where we need to get
Mm.
better. We think that's the other way that we're assessing whether or not we're successful.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll talk more about how you guys are doing that in a bit. You mentioned this, but I still want to ask, can you describe GiveWell's business model?
Yeah, so we're just a nonprofit. We raise money from donors to support our operations. That enables us to have an office, pay staff, travel to see the programs in person that we need to see. And then with that operational funding taken care of, donors can come and support us without having to pay in if they don't want to. And so that can be, some donors just come to our website, use our research for free. We don't ever know about it. They give directly to organizations, and then others are giving through us. And I mean, there are, depending on how people decide to give, there can be a transaction fee on their donation, but we don't need to take a cut of what they're giving. And yeah, so that's how we operate.
Yeah, it's interesting. So there's really no incentive you have no incentive to convince people to give through you, but you need people to support the operations.
Yeah, we want people to support the operations. At the end of the day, I mean, we're not completely indifferent to people giving through us versus giving directly, but we're nearly indifferent about those two
Okay.
options. And the reason we're not completely indifferent, if it comes through us, it's easier for us to measure. If we can measure it, we're better
Uh,
able to go to our donors and say, look, like, so we're supporting us, look at the money we're raising. And then also, we have more control over the money that comes through us. So sometimes, we might want to support a particular program in a particular region of a country. If the money comes
mm,
through us, we can go to an organization and say, for example, there's a lot more malaria in this part of Democratic Republic of Congo than in that part. We really want
mm,
to make sure you're supporting the part
Oh,
where
wow.
your activities will have greater impact. And then on the
mm,
other hand, if you give directly, sometimes, and I think for the organizations we recommend, I hope that they're normally taking that into account. But that really that sort of comparison and quantification is our bread and butter, and organizations have like different means of operating, and so it's also helpful to us because we can say, right now, this particular region and this particular program is the place that has the greatest need and direct funds there.
mm.
That's really interesting. So, where are your donors typically located?
Yeah, so very broadly, I'd say like in the English speaking world. So, US, Canada, UK, Australia would be the biggest locations. US is by far the largest. And then in the US, uh, across the whole country, but like the big centers would be New York and the Bay Area. And you might think of again, this is overly simplified, but the sort of paradigmatic donor is someone who is, on one hand, maybe working in finance and saying, I'm quantitative about my investing, about how I think about my life, how I get return on my investment. I want to bring that same mindset to charitable giving. So that is a big group that supported us. I'd say that's primarily centered in New York, and then at the same time, a bunch of folks in the tech sector, primarily centered around San Francisco and in the Bay Area, where again, also like around the world, but people say, kind of bring that like technical and careful, rigorous mindset to what they do, and then they expect to see the same kind of, supporting evidence and
Yeah.
argumentation, and or they see that in our work that they're used to in other things they do.
You could have been describing our podcast audience just now.
Good. That's music to my ears.
How can Canadian, like you mentioned Canadians, how can Canadians participate? Like, can Canadians give to GiveWell, or what is the alternative?
Yeah. So we work with a group called RC Forward. It's a Canadian registered organization, and through them, Canadian donors can donate directly to
Okay.
GiveWell's top charities. If people wanted, they could donate to our operations directly, and do that in a tax advantage way. RC Forward does charge like a small fee. They do charge a fee, and that's to support their ongoing operations in addition to the transaction cost. And
Mm,
we also just have sometimes Canadian donors will reach out to us directly for
mm.
support, and then we work with them and connect them with RC Forward. And there's an email address on our website if you're looking for help, which is just info@givewell.org.
Cool.
I'm really curious if Sam Bankman-Fried, his association with effective altruism, if that had any effect on GiveWell.
Yeah, it didn't. I wouldn't say it had any direct effects, but I think it might have had some hard to measure indirect effects. So, GiveWell as an organization predated the effective altruism movement and the term effective altruism. There are things in the effective altruism movement that are obviously like very similar to how GiveWell thinks about things, but it was always really important to me and to us at GiveWell that we said we have these core values: truth seeking, transparency, impact, being considerate. And those, I think, stand on their own, regardless of the effective altruism movement as a whole. And so then, I think because of that, there's like one blog post we wrote a long time ago where we talked about being part of the effective altruism movement, but like predominantly we just didn't
Mm.
directly um, align ourselves fully with that movement as our identity. And I think that helped like insulate us when everything happened with Sam Bankman-Fried. And so we just didn't have these like direct negative effects. Via Sam or some foundation of his, I think organizations that we recommend received about $1.5 million, and that came through us, and we returned the money to the bankruptcy estate that it wanted because we were able to do that and thought that was the right thing to do. And then, I think the indirect effects are harder to measure, and probably are more potentially concerning, where, people just have, there was a time when effective altruism and the ideas surrounding GiveWell were thought of like almost entirely in a positive way. And then in the years following that, and maybe still, like those ideas are thought about in a more negative way. And so what was a tailwind may have become a
Mm.
headwind, but it's just like hard to know the extent to which that headwind is affecting us and how much.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting.